Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just wanted to give you a brief summary of the lockdown situation in Pakistan for those who have family there and maybe didn't watch Imran Khan's conference. I got just I think maybe the mid onwards, but overall, what I think is really nice that all the world leaders are following the same sort of plan and the exit strategies like we have in the UK. Some obviously are tailoring it towards their country, which is the best thing to do, rather than adopting exactly the same sort of formula. Some people obviously, like Donald Trump, do their own thing. But the few things that he said that of course, with the coronavirus and the steps that were taken, because I read some of the comments that were made after that, and some people are just not pleased, are they? Some people made comments like, what an idiot of a prime minister, and then, it was such a waste of time doing this now that he's saying this. What he's saying is that in reality, it's going to take a while for a COVID antidote to be created in terms of a vaccine. And whilst we wait for that, we also need to understand that although we are at home and we are keeping safe and whatever not, there is a mass majority in that particular country who are now facing serious risks of starvation. He also made mention that countries like UK and other developing countries have systems in place for those who are at the poorer end of the spectrum. But in most of these developing countries, there are a vast amount of population, a percentage of population that if we continue with this lockdown and they're not having any income, are going to face a huge impact that is greater than obviously the COVID. So as he always says that, he understands the plight of the poor, and we need to also keep those in mind. And he was quite honest, in fact, in saying that, this is here to stay for a while. And what we need to do is have a long-term strategy and have to live with this disease, this virus, for God knows how long. So we need to think about how we're going to prevent this from spreading, and yet also carve a way in which we can actually run the country and the poor people can get back to work. He brought up some statistics. I don't know the numbers in Urdu, but the death rate at the moment, as stands of 14th of May, every month, it was only 700. Okay, I'm going to say that, is that just a particular region? He has spoken about he has a whole team around who collect data like we do about rate of infections and areas and districts in which they come from. That hasn't been clear. So what he's saying that he's urging is SPOs, I think it's called SOPs actually, which is safety measures that need to be put in place before one can go back to work. So these companies and factories and any retail or whatever have to put in place in order for their workers to go back to work. So, in terms of limiting the number of people, social distancing, cleanliness, having masks and so on and so forth, so that they are safe to go back to work, whether it's construction or whatever. So if you are a shop owner, if you are a factory owner or CEO of a company or whatever, it's your responsibility. So in your field of work, if there's a spike in your factory, then you are going to be held accountable for it. Also, if there's a spike in a particular industry, with like construction or a factory or warehouses, then they will then face consequences, but as well as closure. He's also urged people, obviously, yes, you can, we are easing the lockdown, but yet again, the message is exactly the same. You still need to be aware. You still need to keep safe. You still need to be alert. You still need to put all the other bits and pieces that we spoke about in place. So if we've spoken about 2-meter distancing, if we've talked about not going in large crowds, if we've talked about, applying a mask when you go out, or wearing gloves, or stop cross-contamination, and if you're living or if you are a vulnerable person, or have exactly the same thing as UK, you have someone in your house that is a vulnerable person who has medical health condition, then you need to think about, do you need to the house? Do you need to go back to work? Can you go back to work? And the millennials who obviously think they're above everything, when you go out to work, are you taking the precautionary steps when you come back into the house especially when we live in extended families with those vulnerable people, those elderly people, or those children? So the message is very clear, to be quite honest. And he was talking about, the other point he was talking about is those industries that can't open as yet. These are like the hospitality, like the restaurants and stuff. And I know a significant amount of people who rely on this as a source of income. So he was saying, add your name onto the website or this stream, and then they will get back in touch with you. They will run a series of investigations to find out if it's valid or whatever and whatever. So where you're working, and if that industry that you belong to is closed, they will take funds from their presidential funds. It will come out from there, and they will provide those funds to those individuals who obviously are not able to go back to work, but those who can should. So that was quite a nice one. And he was saying about his tiger forces, they've done as much as they can, but I think he realizes it ain't been brilliant. But again, for them to enforce strictness, although he's not himself quite strict about it, all he's saying, like Boris Johnson, because you educate people, you expect other people to follow the same thing. Use your common sense. And that's what he said in a Urdu term. Use your common sense. You know that what we are facing and what we have to live in. He also talked very similar again about the frontliners, that in this country, in developing countries, we do not have the resources or the capabilities or the technology as those developed countries like UK, like USA or Singapore. However, if those countries are struggling, then who are we? So it's very, very important. You also sent out the message to say that people who are going to hospital or asked to come to hospital are also only those people who are suffering significantly due to COVID, but otherwise, staying at home, staying isolated, and just taking your medications or whatever that they are providing, which is again very similar. It's the thing from the same hymn sheet. He also talked about use of transport, because the majority of people who use the local transport are the poor people getting to work one place or another. And he was urging the transport system to be open. What he did not say though, because he had compared it to USA and UK, that we have our transport systems open. Yes, we have 500 cases. It's going to happen. But what he failed to say, that there should be a cap of how many people can go into a bus or whatever, to put those social distancing things in place and those, sanitary things in place and those hygienic measures in place, so that those who travel by are less affected, because we know that in Pakistan and India, or maybe even Bangladesh, crowds are in buses and they're so packed like sardines, and on top and then hanging off the sides. That should be addressed. I think that needs to be addressed to make that very, very clear, because that wasn't very clear. So you want to urge a lot of other directors of people who get in, who come together and form these meetings. They're opposing it. The open of transport links. He's talking about education, that yes, it's very important that we are in our education and things like that, very similar to us in UK, but again, it's something that they are in talks about. What he also mentioned, that I think it was quite significant, that we are focusing, and it seems, and even in this country, I guess, we are focusing quite significantly on COVID-19, but we are forgetting all the other medical needs. And obviously people in this country, if we have medical needs, we are monitored by phone and things like that, and those things are ongoing. But in Pakistan or India or whatever, is that ongoing? Is that still an issue? So he was still saying that we still need to go out where there's still polio and things like that. We still need to go out. NGOs need to go out and administer those injections and those, those medication to those people, so that we're not overlooking those illnesses on top of the illness we've got now. Others will still go back into a pandemic with high numbers of those who've got polio and TB and all the other things. But I think generally it was a really, really good thing. And we need to stop slating and actually moving forward and address the fact that a lot of people out of work, I need to get back to work. It's just a reality. But you need to keep on top of your own safety. Keep safe. Keep everyone around you safe and keep alert. And that's the only underlying message that I think came out of this. And believe in the system, and you have to. As a Muslim, you follow your Amir. So yeah, keep safe.